Alien integration. Can human beings accept newcomers to the community? Would it even work? We're going to talk about that and a lot more right here on the Definitive UFO News Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Let's go. Welcome, everyone, to the Definitive New UFO News Show, where we dig into the biggest UFO headlines, the fight for disclosure, and the push for transparency. This isn't just a news show; it's a real discussion. We break down the stories, examine the possibilities, and the unanswered questions in the search for the truth. No political spin, no biased narratives, just the facts, and yes, the analysis and the conversations that move the needle. I'm your host, Mr. Rob G. Guess what? It's time to dig in. We're going to have a fantastic show here today. Glad that everyone was able to come in and join. We are going to be talking today about alien integration. Is this even a thing, right? We're in this whole moment where we're pushing for disclosure, we're fighting for disclosure. And on this channel, we take a perspective of, okay, well, what happens after disclosure? What do we do after we have that moment? And this is kind of what we'll be exploring today, because you got to think about it, right? Say disclosure happens today, the alien presence makes itself known. How would that work out? Like, what would be the future relationship going forward between human beings and now this presence that has made itself known? Right? Would they want to sit down and have conversation? Would that be the enlightenment thing that we talk about all the time, where they sit down and tell us the history of life in the cosmos? Or do they even have that desire, right? Do they have a desire to integrate with human beings? And then, based on their history, as their the way that they've come up in their civilization, right? Is this something that they would even be open to doing? We're going to go ahead and take a look at that and a lot more here today as we get into a conversation on a Sunday, an early conversation on a Sunday. Let me go ahead. I know we got a couple people that came on in earlier here. Let me go ahead and check and see who has shown up here to have this conversation. Kitty Catty Whack is in the building. Hey, Kitty Catty Whack. Polly Rotterman in the building and has the right idea. Please be sure to hit that like and please subscribe. We would appreciate it. We're on the road to 1,000, as we'll talk about in just a moment here. So I appreciate that, Polly Rotterman. Thanks for letting everybody know. Kitty Catty Whack is saying, hey, great question, Rob. How well would especially with those with no experiences or research, handle integration? That's a great way to look at it, great perspective, great question right there. Let me go ahead and tag that, make sure that we address that during this show. Paramar saying, why would we assume there would be an integration? Right. That's what I'm saying. Would there even be an integration? Right? Would they be open to it? Is that their goal? Is that what they're intending on doing? Right? Are they, because here's the thing, right? You have a group of people that say they're here for enlightenment. They're here help us ascend, right? So that involves some conversations happening. So you would assume, if that were the perspective of the extraterrestrial, to come in, help humanity, help ascend humanity, then there would be some conversations that would need to be had as far as to bringing this up to speed. So do you consider that some sort of assimilation, or if they're working with us in order to help us ascend, right? Maybe not to the level of you go to the corner store and there's an alien, running the corner store sort of situation, but who knows what their true intent is. Do they have a desire to move forward on this planet, right? And if they did, you'd have to ask, okay, are they moving forward on this planet with or without us? Because we would hope it's with, and if it is with, then you would assume that there would have to be some sort of alliance or, you know, some sort of way that we would get together and integrate on some level, right? So you got to think about it. It's a fun conversation to have. There's science fiction movies out there that depict this exact thing taking place, right? And so maybe science fiction becomes science fact, as we talk about a lot on this channel. You never know. Let's take a look here. And Paramarv adding to this comment here saying the ones that are abducting humans, collecting samples, and running experiments on those humans seem more interested, I'm sure, in violation rather than integration. And I agree. And that's part of the conversation that we'll have tonight, right? Because the only way we can look at science fiction and try to say, okay, that sounds plausible. That looks like something that could happen. But I think we have, you know, plenty of examples of the species that we're currently dealing with. And obviously, this is going to be information that we would hear from actual experiencers. What is that? Direct contact with extraterrestrials, right? The people that talk about they saw an extraterrestrial said XYZ. And so we have an idea of what some of the behaviors might be of some of these extraterrestrials. And then we can ask the question, does it make sense that they would even want to integrate, or we would even want them to integrate with us, right? Because that's the bigger thing. Would we want to accept a new presence, extraterrestrial presence here on Earth? You know, I don't know. I don't know. Based on some of the things Paramarv is saying, I can agree with this, and that'll be something more that we'll talk about here. Let's see. Yeah, I didn't get to see this, Polly, Rotterman, Vectus. We'll go ahead and take a look at it before we end the show. Remind me to take a look at that here. We have Mel WD-40 in the building. Obviously, he has to be here because he has to lube up shows. He's the show luber extraordinaire, Mel WD-40, and we appreciate him coming on in here to this afternoon. Meowie. Hey, Meowie, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing on up to the show. Kurt M., appreciate you coming on in to have the conversation this afternoon, or even depending on where you're at in the world, right? Here, I'm in California, and it is currently the afternoon here. Let's see. Kitty Catty Whack. So many bloggers that say the astral traveler can speak with ETs have content on their experiences, aka Galactic Federations, etc. You hear positive and negative aspects, right? That's kind of what we'll have to lean on, because where else can we pull this data from, right? To even begin to know if this is something that would be allowed, so, or that we would even want to take place. Polly Rotterman, what if NHI, not governments, are controlling disclosure? We talk about Congress versus Pentagon, leaks versus cover-ups, but what if the phenomena itself is deciding how much we learn and when? I can understand part of that. The part that has already, that's apparent is that they're here, right? So there is, it depends on what you call disclosure, because truthfully, I think the government knows enough about the phenomena to where if they were to divulge everything that they knew, I think that information alone would bring in disclosure, because it'd be apparent that we had this information or data on what these things are and potentially what their purpose is and what they've done historically here on Earth. There's some of the things that they haven't told us about, like the video that was released in Congress showing an obvious conflict between a military outlet versus an extraterrestrial outlet. So I think the governments have enough knowledge about what's going on to where if they did divulge it to the world on a grand stage, that would be enough to bring in disclosure. So could the extraterrestrials step in before that and bring disclosure? Yes, definitely. They have all the answers to our questions as far as we believe. So, yeah, they could step in immediately before the government, but I don't know that it's necessarily them controlling when disclosure happens. Because if they were controlling it, they do a better job of not allowing all these people to have these experiences or even remember these experiences, right? So let's continue on here. And Kitty Catty Whack say, to be honest, with my experiences, I've had both positive and negative, as you would assume, right? Because we'd assume there's positive and negative energies out there. You know, some people say, "Oh, they're so advanced. They're past the point of, engaging in the type of behaviors that humans engage in." And I don't know, because the first thing we're going to talk about, I think, if we were to look at this particular perspective, might throw some of that out the window. I don't know, but we'll have the conversation. Let me go ahead and jump on into the slides here. Okay. All right, the definitive UFO news show. Obviously, as we start every show, the phone number. Make sure you lock this in your phone. This is the number to call here to the show, which is 856-843-3444, or that's 856 the dig. Outside the US, 001-856-843-3444, or that's 001-856 the dig. We have a message line. You can call in, talk about your experience. You can just chew the fat, just tell us something interesting that we may not have known, show ideas as well, or you could just text, call, say hi. That's a nice thing to do, and it is appreciated. Once again, getting further into the show here, we have memberships available, and we do have members on this channel currently. Let me shout those people out here because they do help make the show go. Memberships, current members: Maggie M10, Leanne Bridges, D. Nunley, The Beekeeper, Polly Rotterman, Miss Catherine Jones, Deb from Sacramento, Wes W. Decker, Ann Joanne, Emperor Penguin, Frankie B., Amy, Laura Dominguez, Moody Mungle, Mel WD40, President Zaddy, Lulu Bell, Richard Minnick, Archon Jackpot, Matt Hector, Eternity Eternal, Thirsty, Deb D, Twiggy, Poncho Zork, and T-Bone. If I missed anyone, I do apologize, as I haven't looked at the list today, the current updated list. But we'll go ahead and make sure that we continue here. Let's see, we got some more in the chat here. Polly Rotterman saying, my feeling is that disclosure, in quotes, is for human understanding and consciousness, but the aliens are pulling the strings, just a theory. Let me see. So, for the human understand, so yeah, I would agree. They would definitely control that part of it because they have the knowledge that we are looking for. So yeah, they would be the gatekeepers to that. Yeah, I can agree with you on that for sure. Bim Jim, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing on up. And as well, Polly Rowland, again, be sure to hit that like and please subscribe. We'd appreciate it. Definitely. Kitty Catty Whack, dropping it in the chat. That's what I'm saying. What can we truly believe in? Government? Question mark. Even with my experiences, did I perceive them truthfully? Or maybe that's what they wanted me to see. I was very coherent when it happened. We could talk about that too. Definitely, because as we've talked about on previous shows, when we listen to people that have had messages from extraterrestrials or direct contact and they say, okay, this is what they said, you have to stop for a moment to ask yourself, were you being deceived in that moment? Is the information they were giving you authentic or correct? Is there, on some level, some, intention on controlling the narrative, right? Just like in anything else. So they put out this particular objective saying, hey, we're here to help. You guys are destroying the planet so that we let our guards down, because I think a lot of people have definitely done that. The people that feel like they're here for love and light, it would seem like a play to get let your guards down. Like, we're not here to do anything bad. We're here to help. You don't have to worry about anything, right? And then they get those individuals that they give that message to, give them the opportunity to kind of spread that message around. And now the going narrative is that, oh no, they're here for love and light. Well, I don't know that that's the case, and I don't think you should be complacent or satisfied in feeling that way, right? Just some thoughts. So we go ahead and get into this here. We have the road to 1,000 subscribers. Consider subscribing today. We would appreciate that. We have a lot of great conversations here on the Social Dig and on the Definitive UFO News Show. And we'd love to have you come and join. I know there's lurkers out there that don't always get involved in the chat. We'd love to invite you into the conversation on the chat, because I think more minds getting together, having these conversations is really what we need, right? We need a bunch of critical thinking human beings, which is what our community is here. A bunch of people who understand that, we can never put 100% on what we feel, right? We need data and we need other things to kind of validate the things that we feel. And we have a lot of thinkers in here that are good at kind of parsing through the data that we receive. So once again, I would love to have any other people who feel the same way or who love to have conversations like these to consider subscribing as we go on our road to 1,000 subscribers. So getting into the show, let's start off the conversation here. Ready for alien integration. How would humans handle integrating with an alien species? Right? And then I guess posing the question back the other way, how would extraterrestrials feel about integrating with humans? They see what type of, they see what our species is all about. And when I say that, I mean, what's shown on the face, which is war. And I've asked this question before, and I think it's been answered, but what is the extraterrestrial perception of humanity just coming in, looking from above, looking down at what it is that we do on a daily basis, and a lot of the times that they are engaged by humanity, it's through military action. So is that the perception they have of us? Is that, they can't let their guards down because these human beings will confront them anytime they show up? Because that's essentially what the military does when they show up on the spot. As soon as a UFO comes, you have fighter jets in the sky and Black Hawk helicopters, right? So if I'm coming in from the outside and I see that's the interaction that I get, then I might put a blanket, feeling on humanity as a whole and say, hey, they're all like that, or do they understand that no, humanity itself is a compassionate, caring group of individuals that care about life and other living things, and that they are, essentially being ruled by this war sort of mongering element of humanity, which would be the governments around the world. So I would hope they would see through that and understand that not all humanity is that way. And I guess we'll find out whenever we get this contact moment. But in the moment, just say tomorrow we wake up and there's a UFO in the sky, or there's been this huge incident where a UFO landed, and a lot of people were there, got film and footage, and this was that moment, right? So going forward from that point, like once we were able to get past that, have the conversations, figure out why they're here. If they were here because they like the planet, right? And now that the secret is out, would there be with them coming and going the way that they do, will we just continue to allow that? Because it's no harm, no foul, and we don't own the planet, right? So this planet could be used by anything technically living out there in the solar system. Truthfully, when you look at it like that, right, we don't own the planet. So once we understand what these things are and we just continue to allow them to come and go and do whatever it is that they do, is that a thing? Or once we open up the Pandora's box and they know that we all know that they're here and they like this planet and they're like, we want this planet, and you guys can stick around with us if you want, right? But we're coming to kind of inhabit this planet in the open, right? And we wouldn't have a say in that, right? If they decided that's what they wanted to do. So we had a couple of examples here. I don't know, and I'm pretty sure if you're a UFO fan, you've gone out and watched the movie District 9, which this is a perfect example of if humanity had the ability to control the narrative or the agenda, push their own agenda, that this is more likely what integration would look like, right? So just a brief synopsis for those who haven't watched the movie. And if you haven't, right after this show, I'm sure you'll find it on Netflix or somewhere online. You should go and watch this movie. It's actually pretty decent. But there's a UFO that ends up parking itself in the sky, and it's there for either 3 months or 3 years. I can't recall off top, but they were there for a while before anything happened. So they're sitting there in the sky every day. Essentially, humanity ends up going up to the spaceship and kind of getting inside of it so we can see what's going on. And we find a bunch of distressed extraterrestrials who are, pretty much on the brink of being eliminating themselves, essentially. Starvation, sickness, all sorts of things we find once we enter this UFO. So we end up opening up our arms and saying, hey, we could kind of provide a place for you. And we did that. But what human beings did in this moment was they turned that safe haven into, I guess, a concentration camp, essentially, for extraterrestrials, right? And so part of me feels like that's what human beings would do if we had not human beings, let me preface that. The government, the human beings in governments around the world, this is probably the way that they would want it to go, where they could control what happens and how this integration would go, right? So if you watch the movie, human beings are fully aware of extraterrestrials. They're here, the UFOs parked in the sky. They build this community for these extraterrestrials. We end up engaging in some sort of conflict because they're not being treated right. And I'll just kind of spare you for the rest. I'll just let you go watch the movie. But I would say this is probably how we would not want, or we would hope the integration did not go that way. And hope it would be more of an open situation where both sides could have a voice and, talk about the best options for human beings going forward. And I'm sure, on some level, maybe some things we could help extraterrestrials out with that are out of their sphere of abilities or even knowledge. Because as I pointed out before in previous shows, we just assume because they're advanced technologically and they've been around so many more years, you would assume, and we have assumed, that they are just so far more intelligent than we are, and that we could never, there'd never be a situation where we may know more than they, right? But look at it like this. You can have someone educated, gone through college, got their bachelor's degree, their master's degree, and are experts in a particular field that don't know anything about planting a seed and growing corn, right? So there's, with that being said, and I live this way, that there isn't, when I look at people out there, I don't feel like I can know more than a particular person. I have learned things from children, right? And I'm sure some of you have as well. So, in the event that extraterrestrials do show up and we have this sit down, will we find out that they don't know as much as we thought they knew, right? As far as the highest level of information, like the meaning of life and, all the things that we just assume that they know because they've been around for so long. I feel like if we were able to sit down and have a conversation with some of the most knowledgeable extraterrestrials, that we would find out that there's even questions that they still have about maybe the universe or, certain things. I just feel like they probably don't know everything, right? So when you think about it like that, then it makes the idea of integration, more plausible. Because, yeah, if they know everything, they don't need us for anything, right? And why would they just want to sit and integrate with us? But if it was a situation where they were experts in their field and the place they come from, but have no idea of what's going on here on Earth, that could be a moment where, a teaching moment, right? For human beings and to show, to extend that olive branch the same way we want them to extend to us, right? And so when we think about that, okay, now it's plausible. Maybe integration could happen if it needed to. Let's now think about some of the species, right, that we would be integrating with. According to some people, there are just so many species that you can't even name them all. I don't really go off that. I know from people that I've spoken to and interviewed that, there's been maybe 5 or 6, 7 main specific species that a lot of people talk about. And those are going to be the ones that we cover because we sort of have an idea of what their thought processes are based on, now this is solely based on information that we've received from people who have had contact with these beings. I have not had any sort of contact with any extraterrestrial, so I can't vouch for, any of the information that we get. I can only give benefit of the doubt to say, this seems to be a truthful person, and the statement seems to be. You could kind of feel some things. Some people are just really great liars, but some people just aren't, and you can tell who is maybe not being totally truthful, might be adding things to the story, right? So just based off people we've talked to that we know, why would they lie sort of situation. That's all we can do, really. It's all we can base it off of at this time until we have more tangible information from these extraterrestrials. So who reaches out in this scenario, right? So say this District 9 thing happens here now, right? Just like Independence Day, sort of, right? They were more aggressive. But say as in District 9, this huge UFO shows up in the sky and is just sitting there, no activity coming from it, no attempts to contact, it's just sitting there. And we're wondering if they're going to step out and say something. They haven't. So would we then make the initiative to step out, right? Who makes the first move? And then let's just assume that, let's look at it as, okay, this is going to be a benevolent species. They want to, integrate with us as far as share knowledge with us and kind of befriend us, right? That's essentially, you go into a foreign territory of the world, a part of the world you've never been, and you're meeting someone that doesn't speak your language at all. So it's totally alien to you, the the language, right? But there are other actions and other things that you can do between each other to show intent, right? And it's like the unspeakable language, right? And I know a lot of you know what I mean there. So what type of human activities would you introduce an alien to? And I just like to ask that question here. Who, if this event happened and we were in the moment where we're going to, have conversations with these extraterrestrials, they're right here standing in front of you. What type of human activities would you introduce them to? I'm just interested to know. Like, if you had the chance to say, hey, come with me, I want to show you XYZ, what would be some of the things that you would want to show an extraterrestrial? I would love to know that. And I'm looking in the chat just in case anybody chimes in. As we're waiting for that, let me read some of your comments here. Yeah, exactly. The Ferret, the movie and subsequent TV show Alienation followed this theme. Yeah, essentially, it was, you know, along the lines, it was more of the what you would hope a similar integration to be. Alienation, if you guys haven't ever seen this, they had a movie and a TV show back in the day, and I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. But we're talking about extraterrestrials doing human things, right? Inhuman jobs, wearing human clothes, and things of that nature. So it's actually pretty interesting and a good thing to think about. Let me see. And also, I did see Wayne step on in. Appreciate you coming on in, Wayne, and joining the conversation. Let's see. Paul Damon, thank you for coming on in as well, saying our tech has surpassed our compassion. They're here to teach us. Ah, man, I like that. I like that, Paul Damon. I do like that. I do like that because technology, as we've talked about with the aerial school, with the kids being told technology is bad, and we talked about why technology could be looked at as bad because it takes us so far away from our natural state or us being able to, survive within nature, that could technically, that technology could be something that puts us in a situation in an extinction event. And not because necessarily because of AI, but because technology has made things so simple and easy for humans that if the light switch turned off, if we had an outage across the world, internet power globally, a lot of the population you could count a lot of the population out immediately, right? So that's a huge population control event just because we moved away from nature and have embraced technology just because of that. So I like this. I like this comment here, Paul Damon. Appreciate that. Polly Rotterman. Each species' knowledge might depend on its level of evolution. Different species could have millions of years of evolution between them. Yeah, true. But in looking at how we look at things here, right? How much time does it take to learn everything that there is to know? And the answer is probably just like space being infinite, that there is no knowing it all, regardless of where you are in the universe. That's how I feel. I don't think that any species is able to get to a point to where they know every answer. Because we are under whatever created everything. So unless you're talking to the creator, and you can look at that however you want to. Some people call him God. Some people call him the source. Some people call him Yahweh's. There's a million names for who people believe the creator is, right? I don't believe extraterrestrials are the creators. So If they're not the creators, then it's a great chance that even with millions of years on of you know history on us, being around for millions of years longer than us, I don't know if I still think they get to a point to where they don't know everything, and even there's questions we may be able to answer about things that are pertinent here to us on Earth. Let me see. Kurt M. Maybe aliens aren't as evolved as we think. They just have better AI, and that's what I'm saying. There's no proof that they are, and that's what they depict in District 9, which was so interesting, is that once they got to see these aliens weren't all knowing, all seeing. They had the tech to float in our sky for an extended period of time, but they weren't, you know, they weren't. I don't know if you call a book smart because I don't know what they do, but they just weren't as advanced as you would have thought they were mentally, right? So that is likely a pattern that you might see out there, that these people aren't as smart as you thought they were, right? You could have a conversation with somebody who holds all these degrees, but when you sit down and have a conversation with them, it doesn't come across like that, right? They still, even though with all those degrees, they still don't have all the answers, right? And I think if you just magnify that idea to a larger level, this is what you're talking about with extraterrestrials. They're very smart, they know more, but they just don't know it all. The ferret, I feel like they would be here to leverage our resources, whatever that may be. And we're going to go across some scenarios, and I believe that is definitely part of it as well. Let's see. Paul Naman, they've been here watching, waiting. Yeah. For what? Mel WD40, who says we don't have cloak crafts above us now? Ooh, that's the scary thing, because here's the thing, and this is the thing I always ask, is where are the motherships, right? Some people see motherships huge, talking about an unbelievably huge craft in the sky. And so you would assume that's where these smaller craft come from. So it's like, okay, well, the smaller craft are always here. So then where is the mothership? Is the mothership off on the backside of the moon? Is it opposite of the sun? Is it under our ocean, right? Or is it sitting right above us cloaked? That's one of the things I've thought about as well. Polly Rotterman, let's see. There might be a species where their first Tesla was just born or still in cave ages. Yeah, I'm sure there's different levels of evolution, as you were saying before. Um, Polly Rotterman, Mel, well, Lockheed Martin has a craft that shapeshifts. Okay, and is that what you were talking about before? Because I know there was just something released today, and I'll bring it up during the show. Actually, let me see. I think I saved it. We're talking about it now. Let me just bring it up real quick. Let's see. If you could, Polly, put the name of that back in the chat real quick, and I'll end up bringing it up. All right. And I'm liking these statements here. You guys are always awesome on this. Kurt M. What human activity to introduce aliens to donkey basketball? Paul Demond, animal rescue ranches and beavers. Let's see. We got Poncho Zork saying lurking while driving. We appreciate you coming on in, Poncho Zork. Kitty Catty Whack saying Medical treatments. I know the talk with experimenting on humans, but maybe they are more advanced. They could help with cancer, paralysis, autoimmunity, etc. I hope so, Kitty Catty. I really do. I really hope there's some of that in this. Let me see. Flat Six says, I'd want to show them how we take necessities like food, shelter, and communication and turn these things into art, like with poetry and architecture. That's pretty human. That'd be awesome. They need to get some culture. I'm sure they don't have this type of culture where they come from, right? Wayne, how will humans handle integration? People who follow alien UFOs will handle it better than the rest of the population, in my opinion. That's true. And I'm kind of speaking towards because obviously there is going to be that point where the people who didn't believe or the people who are just coming around will go through their ontological shock that moment, but then they'll eventually come around to the realization and understanding that these things are here, and really at that point, right, when everybody's just like, okay, what's next? That's kind of what I'm talking about, having a conversation then. Let's see. Magneticus, thanks for coming on in, buddy. I think all the stars in the sky is God's neural network. Ooh, you're going deep, Magneticus. I've thought about that too. I've talked about it. We can do a show around that because I think there's some pretty decent stuff to look at there. Let's see. All right, I like this comment, Pancho Zort. College ain't knowledge, and that's the truth, Roof. That's the double truth, Roof. College ain't knowledge. It's information. Okay, Flat Six lays it out right here. I got a total of 4 college degrees, and I feel pretty lost a lot of the time. Yeah, yeah. Mel W40, some people with degrees have a hard time tying their shoes. That's what I'm talking about. So when we talk about they're so far advanced, or not necessarily us, but the community talks about they're so far advanced. So, what would they want here? What would they want with us? Why would they want to integrate? Why would they? That we're assuming that, right? We don't know that they're, that different from us. I think we'll find out, and I think we'll find out that they are more like us than we are different, because of what brought us to what made our lines intersect, right? Which would made our paths cross. You'd have to assume that there are a lot of similarities in with on both sides that allowed us to intersect, for our lines to intersect, right? And I think we'll find out a lot more about that. Let's see. Awesome information, Paramar. There was a 2018 movie, Bright, on Netflix that dealt with the integration of aliens. It was pretty good. It starred the infamous face slapper Will Smith. I must have missed that one. I was, I was out of the Will bucket for a while. I missed that one. But good information. I'll look for it after the show. All right, Polly. I keep Martin. I can't click that link you put in the chat. Let's see. Maybe we'll watch it if it's a video. Let me try to bring it up here. Let me see. Missed opportunity, I think, if we don't look at it. So let me see. I did see this come through my feed earlier today, but I did not look it up, or I did not look into it. Okay. I'll bring this up for a minute, maybe if I can here. Oh, I'll save this. We'll save this to the end of the show. I'll leave it up and then we'll save it to the end of the show. But it's a new stealth drone, essentially, Lockheed Martin unveiled. But I'm going to make some points on that when we talk about that later. So make sure you don't go anywhere. Because I feel like it follows a lot of what we would expect from these contractors to release. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Let's see. President Zaddy, thanks for stepping on in. Appreciate you, sir. Ooh, I like this. Bim Jim, humanity must give politics back to the baboons. Please do. Please do. Holly Rotterman feels like we are them, they are us, we are one. Okay. All right. So, getting into it here. I'm just going over a couple scenarios here because, yeah, assuming alien integration would be a thing, would we be open to allowing extraterrestrials to visit? Sure, for economic reasons and tourism, if that even if that even translates to galactic, what do they use for currency? Do they use currency? I wasn't figured all that stuff out, but I think with human with Earth not technically being ours, if we had visitors coming here that showed no malevolent intent, they were all benevolent beings, and they wanted to simply come and see some things. I pretty sure being human beings and being kind-hearted, compassionate beings, that we would allow that to take place. So if that did happen, how would those interactions be? Or, with the type of extraterrestrials that have been mentioned, is this even a possibility for a scenario like that to take place, right? And that's kind of what we're looking at here. So we're going to jump into the reptilians, because here's right. So we're gonna go. This is assuming this integration event was going to happen with the reptilians. How would that go? Would they allow for integration? Would we want to integrate with them? I'm going to go over something that I had up here. So the day the reptilians revealed themselves wasn't, and this is actually going to be, it's a semi story of how the event will play out. But the day the reptilians revealed themselves wasn't marked by a flash of light or crashing saucer. It was a cold, calculated press conference at the World Economic Forum, one of the world's most powerful financial magnates, a man who had been a quiet power player for decades, right? And you could tell this is sort of like those untouchable individuals that pull the strings on pretty much a lot of the big events around the world that have been rumored to, I'll say. One of the world's most powerful financial magnates, a man who had been quiet power player for decades, stepped onto the podium. His eyes, typically piercing blue, flickered to a cold reptilian gold for a fraction of a second on the Jumbotron before returning to normal. He didn't speak of peace or new technology. He spoke of optimization. And I'm technically not in this boat, but you do have people in this reptilian, people who speak about reptilians. They will say that there's people that they point to in power positions that they say are reptilians. Now, I don't go down that thought path. I don't necessarily feel that way. I haven't had an encounter with any being itself to be able to validate something like that. But this is what people say, is that, oh, did you see the video? This, like the woman on the plane, remember, who said she was screaming hysterically on the plane, talking about that person isn't who they are. Well, I forgot what she said. It was wild. But a lot of people will point to moments like that where they'll say people, and I'm not laughing because it's not true. It's just hilarious. Some of the moments, and I'll just tell you one right here, where they said, okay, I was watching Barack Obama or some other person, and when they were talking, their tongue seemed to be split like a serpent, right? And claiming that these people are actually reptilians. Now, I've debunked some of this stuff as well. I've shown, where someone thought that there was a video of a guy dunking a basketball, but it was kind of grainy, the video. And this person was promoting this as this guy's a reptilian. Do you see how his reptilian fingers are wrapping around this ball, and explaining this to a crowd of people? And I took 5 minutes, went online, and found a very clear video of the same thing. And it was R&B singer Chris Brown dunking a basketball. But this same video is what this person was walking around promoting as a reptilian. So that just lets you know where I fall at with the reptilian stuff. Not really sure about that, but based on what people say about reptilians, this reptilian didn't speak of peace or new technology. He spoke of optimization. Quote, your current systems, he said, his voice in a chilling monotone, are inefficient. Your emotional economies are a chaotic drain on planetary resources. We have been a part of your world for eons, and now we will correct it. But this is the reptilian mind state. Okay, the cat's out the bag. We know they're here, and instead of integration, this is essentially what's, the steps they may take next, right? Going against integration. The challenge was not an invasion, but a hostile takeover. The reptilians, with their alleged ability to shapeshift and infiltrate human institutions, had already secured every major power structure. They didn't need to fight. They have been pulling the strings for centuries. Their first move was a global economic, quote, restructuring. All national currencies were replaced with a single, unhackable quantum cryptocurrency. The world was now run on a perfect data-driven algorithm that redistributed resources based on cold, hard logic, not human need or emotion. There was no poverty, but there was no art. No hunger, but no spontaneity. Just seems monotone, or as they said, monotone, but grayscale, right? More like grayscale. Humanity's greatest challenge was the loss of meaning. The reptilian agenda stripped away the messy emotional aspects of life, love, faith, family, and art, which the reptilians viewed as irrational inefficiencies. They outlawed cash, making all transactions traceable and removing black markets. They mandated logical thought in schools, teaching children to suppress their emotions. Resistance wasn't about fighting a physical enemy, but about preserving the very essence of what made us human. A global network of artists, poets, and musicians, the quote, Dragon Slayers, began a digital insurgency using encrypted code and forbidding art to spread subversive ideas. Their goal was not to win a war, but to simply keep the flame of human emotion from being extinguished under the cold, logical shadow of the serpent. That could be a movie. That could be a movie. There's always going to be an insurgent group, I would hope. As long as human beings are true to who they are, there's always going to be a group that goes against things that negatively affect humanity. Essentially, this show is something of that nature, where we confront things that negatively impact humanity, right? That's what we do here. So, in this new world, that might be us, right? Who knows? How the integration might turn out for humanity. Integration with reptilians would be a subtle form of assimilation, not coexistence. Humanity would achieve a kind of forced utopia, free from war, poverty, and disease. However, this peace would come at the cost of our free will and emotional depth. We would become a species of efficient, logical beings devoid of the very things that make life worth living. The outcome would be a quiet extinction of the human spirit, replaced by the sterile, logical perfection of the reptilian worldview. So, some of the points here: the price of efficiency. When a perfected system removes all chaos and emotion, what is the value of life? Is a life free of suffering worth living if it's also free of love, passion, and meaning? It's a good question. Maybe you guys should answer that out there. When a perfect system removes all chaos and emotion, what is the value of life? Is life free of suffering worth living if it's also free of love, passion, and meaning? Also, the war that we didn't see coming. The greatest threat wasn't an invasion, but an assimilation from within. How do we fight an enemy that has already won without a single battle? Yeah, those are reptilians, right? Polyronoman, I will reptilian shapeshift if you piss me off for sure. That's what they say, man. Hey, that they say reptilians are out there. I don't have any proof of that. I'm just going off of people that I've spoken to about the actual species. I think that's when they've gone too far, truthfully, if I can be truthful for a moment. I just don't feel like all the extra information that we're given is pertinent, right? This is where they came from. This is like I can't go down that road because all of that could be incorrect, right? We can only, if we're being responsible in the way we think about this, in the way we have these conversations, we can only go off of what we do know, right? So going out there saying, "Oh, reptilians, all they're here to do the all their government, they're in our government." They're Yeah, I don't know. We have proof of that. Do we have proof that they're actually in the government? These videos that you point to that show, serpent eyes or a split tongue. I mean, can we be serious about those? I haven't seen one that has been convincing enough to be like, wow. Everything I see is like not anything that you could really, do anything with. So you can take that how you want with the reptilians, but one of the more prominent species that people talk about and have encounters with, and that I feel like is probably definitely a species that's there, are the gray aliens. The good old grays, if I can get them to come up. Yep, the grays. So people have different understandings or meanings about what the grays are here for, what their purpose are. Some people say they're short grays, which are the workers, and then there's tall grays, which are the brains. And I don't know if that's true. Once again, we can only just going off of experience or statements. Once again, I think when you get into the details about who does what position this person holds, and or this species holds, that's where I think you're going too far, and I think it doesn't really help to kind of go down that rabbit hole, right? But to just know that we're dealing with something, which we do know, and then saying, okay, it looks like this, and we call it a gray, right? I think that's a good place to start. But same as the first, with the grays, they didn't land in a field. The grays appeared in a more subtle, more terrifying way. Their presence first noted in a widespread reports of, quote, lost time and missing memories among the population. The Greys, as a hive minded species, don't understand individuality, and their alleged purpose is to collect genetic material and conduct psychological experiments. Global society was unprepared for this kind of subtle mental invasion. People would wake up from a dreamless sleep feeling a sense of emptiness and a chilling logical suggestion in their minds. The Greys were not taking us to their ships, they were entering our minds from a higher dimension, collecting our memories and emotions like data. They didn't want our bodies, they wanted our consciousness. The primary challenge was a mental health and societal identity crisis. Therapists and psychologists were overwhelmed by patients reporting fragmented memories and a chilling sense of emotional detachment. Conspiracy theories about mind raiders and soul snatchers flourished, leading to widespread paranoia. Communities began to turn inward, rejecting technology and outside communication in a desperate, futile attempt to protect their minds. This scenario is highlighting how our current digitally well-connected world is the perfect vector for Gray's harvest. With our lives lived online and our minds saturated with information, we are already a data set waiting to be collected. The Gray's, quote, integration is a form of non-physical assimilation, and humanity's only defense was to retreat from the very things that define us: technology, communication, and the shared consciousness of our digital world, in a desperate effort to cling to our individual selves. Integration, the way it would turn out with the Greys, would be parasitic relationship. Humanity would become a resource for the Greys, a vast biological hard drive from which they could extract memories, emotions, and genetic data for their own inscrutable purposes. The outcome would be a gradual decay of human identity and consciousness. We would not be destroyed physically, but mentally. The human race would exist as a collection of empty shells, our collective memories and emotions having been harvested by a species that doesn't value them as anything more than data. The Greys didn't want our land or resources, they wanted our minds. In a world where our lives are lived online, our vulnerabilities were not physical but mental. And the ultimate battle is not for global power, but for the human soul. When your very sense of self can be stolen, how do you defend what you don't even know you possess? See, that's where it gets this, and this is based off of some of the characteristics, some of the things that people talk about, right? They don't have a soul, so that's the reason why they, are focused on us, because we do have the soul. Well, if we welcome them in, would it be a situation where they'd want to kind of intermingle with us, or would they have a set purpose or agenda? And it's seeming to be that it's likely that all of these species, if they're believed to be out there or visiting us, have individual agendas. And this is even including some of the more human ones, right? Where this is, I don't know, this is controversial when you get into Nordics, Palladians. We're going to talk about both. But as far as the Nordics go, just running the scenario down, the Nordics, or tall whites, as they were sometimes called, didn't arrive in a flying saucer. They simply appeared among us, serene and beautiful, in major cities across the globe. They looked like the most perfect versions of humans. Tall, blonde, blue-eyed, and radiating a calm, undeniable wisdom. They claimed to be our cosmic guardians, our benevolent forebears who had returned to save humanity from itself. The Nordics' quote contact wasn't a warning, but a correction. They offered humanity a new path, a utopian social contract that they called the Great Harmony. They used their advanced technology to fix the world's problem in an instant. Global warming? Their ships release an unknown energy to stabilize the climate. World hunger? They provided schematics for a matter synthesizer that could create food from thin air. They were perfect, and they were right. The challenge was not to fight them, but to live under their benevolent rule. The Nordics, with their paternalistic nature, began to, quote, guide humanity. They exposed corruption in governments and corporations, leading to a new world order where they were the ultimate authority. They began to correct our human flaws, subtly influencing our political decisions and social norms to fit their perfect unemotional worldview. That scenario shows the dangers of benevolent paternalism. The Nordics' utopia came at the cost of human autonomy. The most profound challenge was the loss of self determination. Human leaders became little more than puppets. Human artists were told their work lacked symmetry and harmony. The things that made us unique, our passion, our flaws, and messy, beautiful mistakes, were seen as hindrances to be fixed. The great fear wasn't that the Nordics would destroy us, but they would perfect us to the point that we were no longer human. Very, very interesting. Very interesting, right? And it seems like that's been the best scenario so far, but it still has the unintended negative impact on who we are as human beings. And that's right. That's further than we thought about this, right? Because the Nordics, once again, are supposed to be the nice ones, and but would you want to live in a world where they had the ability to control what we did, and even though they're benevolent, the unintended effect would be something that would change humanity, in a way that we probably wouldn't want to be changed, right? As individual and as open and as creative as human beings are. Even with that, the best so far, potential species to integrate with just would be a bad idea, right? So, moving on. What do we have next? I think we have a couple more. We have, the mantids. Okay, the mantids, right? These are supposed to be emotionless as well, similar to the reptilians. And if you believe what you see on TV, they might actually eat human beings. Not really sure, but let's go over a hypothetical scenario on if the contact moment that we would have, our disclosure moment, it ends up being with beings that are the mantids, right? So the mantids, or mantis beings, a single colossal insectoid figure appeared in the sky over a seemingly random spot, the Great Plains of North America. It didn't communicate, but its presence caused a profound effect. It created a temporal rift where past, present, and future all coexisted. The effect was localized, but its implications were global. The mantids, who are rumored to be masters of time and reality, weren't here to teach us a language. They were here to perform a complex, unknowable experiment. The temporal rift caused a form of psychic chaos. People with a 5-mile radius would see their own lives unravel in a chaotic jumble of memories, futures, and present moments. Families would see their children grow up and die in an instant, only to see them as infants again. This challenge wasn't a threat of invasion, but a complete breakdown of human casualty. Our entire society is built on a linear understanding of time. Without it, there is no law, no progress, no narrative. A new global crisis emerged, a chronocontagion where people's minds, exposed to the chaos of the rift, would begin to experience the same effects even after leaving the area. This scenario shows humanity's inability to grasp concepts outside of our own limited perspective. The mantids' quote, gift of a new reality was a curse to human society. Our institutions, our legal systems, our very sanity were completely unprepared for a consciousness that saw time as not a line, but as a woven tapestry. The mantis shows that the greatest threat to humanity may not be a physical one, but a cognitive one, a new form of reality that our minds are simply not equipped to handle. Integration with the mantids would be a form of mental and spiritual assimilation. Humanity would not be able to coexist with the mantis reality without going insane. The outcome would be either a total mental collapse of human society or, for a select few, a kind of enlightenment that separates them from the rest of humanity. We would either be destroyed by a reality we cannot comprehend, or a small fraction of humanity would evolve beyond our current state of consciousness, leaving the rest of the world behind to unravel in chaotic, timeless existence. And we'll leave off with hopefully a brighter scenario here with the Palladians. A single, beautiful, androgynous Palladian, a being of pure light and consciousness. This starseed named Lyra, had no memory of her past, but she radiated an overwhelming sense of love, healing, and empathy. The Palladians, who are rumored to be here to uplift humanity spiritually, don't invade, they incarnate. Lyra's presence was a peaceful revolution. She would walk through a hospital ward and heal people just by being near them. She would talk to a troubled politician, and they would suddenly change their policies to become more compassionate and just. Lyra's gift was not technology, but a spiritual awakening that she could pass on to others. This power spread like wildfire. The world's largest pharmaceutical companies saw Lyra not as a savior, but as a threat to their business model. Defense contractors saw her as a potential weapon. A new, powerful Aegis Directorate was formed with the express purpose of capturing her and understanding her spiritual power. This scenario highlights how purely peaceful and benevolent force could be met with hostility and cynical exploitation in our current society. The spiritual awakening she offered was a direct threat to power structures that rely on sickness, war, and division. Her greatest fight was not with a physical enemy, but against a societal system that viewed love and compassion not as a solution, but as an asset to be weaponized. Lyra's story is a chase, a constant flight from a world that is so broken it cannot comprehend the gift of pure, unadulterated benevolence. Integration with the Palladians will lead to a schism and a long drawn out war for humanity's soul. The outcome is not a simple victory or defeat, it would create a new societal division. Those who embrace the spiritual awakening and reject the old corrupt systems, and those who fight desperately to preserve their power by hunting and exploiting the Palladians' gift. The integration would be a battle for the very nature of human civilization. We would either be spiritually uplifted or we would destroy ourselves in our futile attempt to control and weaponize what cannot be controlled. Wow. Okay, so that's deep. And okay, so the Palladians seems like based on that, they would have the best intent coming in. But as we just read here, the powers that be, the governments that have formed the system that we currently live in would be, for one, not, totally against everyone being enlightened, for one, and then as well the contractors or same powers that be attempting to gain the ability to, change a mind. I don't know if it's essentially changing a mind when we talk about enlightenment, but being able to take someone who felt this way and then switch them over to understanding what humanity is all about is definitely a great gift to have. And yeah, if that could be weaponized, we would be the ones to do it. The current iteration of the societies that we live in would be the ones to do it. So that was a great thought experiment, just something to kind of go down. If we did have a moment where the word integration was being used, or if it was even going to be a thought of maybe some of the upcoming steps now that we have contacted these things. In a lot of cases, you see there could be inadvertent effects that weren't forthcoming based on the intent that these beings showed initially, which goes back to the conversations of people that do talk to these beings or have had channeling or downloads. Are you getting information that is, pertinent to humanity, or is it disinformation that you're spreading amongst the public? It's a thought exercise, right? And I think it's definitely something to consider, and it's really something to consider because we are in a moment where we're being visited by these things all the time. There has to be a moment, maybe not tomorrow, maybe tomorrow, where we have the incident that then propels us forward to have those other conversations or to kind of confront, the thought process on, do we want these things here with us? Are we okay with them coming and going? And is there anything we can do about it, first of all? And then if not, do we get along, do we get together to get along, or get along to get, whatever the phrase is? Do we, get together and hope that everything works out, or, you know, should we take some of these scenarios into and think about them as, okay, there could be things that we don't even see on the surface that would end up being bad for us in the end, and that's why it's great to have these conversations. So, with that being said, we ran over. Okay, we're about 116 right now. We're okay. I think I wanted to make sure we were under an hour and 30 minutes. So, with that being said, I want to take a moment to go ahead and take a look at the story that Polly presented to us here. Let me go ahead and bring myself back up, and let me see if I can add this to the screen here, guys. Give me just a moment, and we'll read this story before we get out of here. All right, we got it up, and I'm gonna make this full screen actually, guys. So hold on. All right, so I'll go ahead and read this. This is that's a lot of ads on this page. So this is apparently what was released. This object here that you're seeing on the screen, which is called the Vectis Air Combat Drone. I'll go ahead and read it for you here. Lockheed Martin's famed Skunk Works Advanced Projects Division has lifted the lid on a new higher end stealth collaborative combat aircraft type drone named Vectis. The uncrewed aircraft is designed to be highly adaptable to an operator's requirements, whether they be in the United States or elsewhere around the world, expected to fly within 2 years. Vectis notably follows Skunkworks' failed gold-plated high stealth bid for the first phase of the U.S. Air Force's CCA program, but still puts above average emphasis on survivability compared to the other designs that the service is now testing. Skunkworks has yet to share exactly when development of Vectis began, but has described it as a product of a broader development philosophy it is adopted called Agile Drone Framework. The framework prioritizes modularity and open mission systems, as well as interoperability in areas like command and control architectures over anything in specific hardware. The name Vectis means lever or pole in Latin and is meant to reflect the leverage the platform offers. Meet Vectis, a Group 5 survivable, lethal, reusable, collaborative combat aircraft that embodies not only our pedigree in crewed fighter aircraft autonomy and uncrewed systems, but that is also enabled by that agile drone framework. OJ Sanchez, Lockheed Martin. Let's see. Vectis will provide U.S. and allied warfighters with range, endurance, mission, flexibility, including air to air air to surface, and ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Um, Let me see here if there's anything else, anything special about this here. Okay, seen below also includes a cutaway view of SA. Okay, apparently there's a video. Let's see if we can watch it real quick here. All right. So at the very least, some awesome tech. Right. Here's how I feel about that, and this just further, this release just further kind of pushes this narrative that if these contractors have reverse engineered craft, which means they've taken their own hands and rebuilt, one of these crash retrievals. Um, we don't see any proof of that, right? With the things that they release, and we did a show recently where we talked about how going back all the way to the SR-71, what it seems to be apparent is the particular design language that these contractors are using or taking. None of them show anything next level as far as propulsion goes. All these aircraft since the SR-71 have been designed in a triangular sort of angular shape, right? And they all still use wings for lift. And it's just another example of the same thing. And it's like I said, how much further down the line do we go with more and more of these uh, new projects being released that have obviously been worked on for the previous 20 years, we'll say? Where do you get to a point to where you're saying, well, where's this anti-gravitic tech that people say you have? Chances are they don't have it, or they haven't reverse engineered it, is what I'll say. I think they do have it, which goes back to the Ben Rich statement that they have the tech to take ET home. But I just don't think they've built it. And the things that they built are things that you're seeing that eventually come out and get released. But I don't think there's anything that points to these companies have the ability to reverse engineer extraterrestrial craft that come from a whole nother star system that likely have elements and materials and ways of manufacturing that we just don't have here on Earth, or have the ability to replicate or reproduce. So I would expect more of the craft that do come out to look just like the one we just saw right here, right? Brand new craft just released, and it still takes on the same angular design language of all the previous craft that have come out. Bird of Prey, SR-71, F-117 Nighthawk, B-21 the bomber, the stealth bomber, or the RQ-170 drone, which looks similar to that, the RQ-180. Yeah, so none of the things that they've released show anything but what you would expect coming out of the next project, which is something that looks a little more advanced, but still is using the same means of propulsion and the same means of staying up in the air, which is using wings for lift. So until that changes, I won't be, it's cool that we have something new that can probably do some cool things. better than the previous iterations, but I won't stand on that hill that they have reverse engineered tech. I don't believe they do. And until we see something that even hints at they have something next level, then I don't know how people can walk around and say that. You know what I mean? Because people do. I just don't know where you're getting that from or how you have the ability to say that they have reverse engineered things when there's a lot of contradictory reports and, people who have said otherwise. Bob Lazar, as we always talk about, said they hadn't figured it out. They haven't. And even 30, 40 years from when Lazar made that statement, there just isn't anything that says that they've done it since then. There's actually been other whistleblowers come out and say they haven't figured it out. So nice video. Cool to know that we have a new drone out there in the sky to cause more war and to blow other things up. And maybe, the best case scenario it could be used for is what we saw in the video that was released by Congress showing one of these drones, not that drone or that particular model, but I think it was MQ-9 Reaper or something like that, that fired on that Hellfire missile on the UFO. So, are you making better drones to have better effect on the battle that we're obviously having with these UFOs? I don't know. That's to be determined. But that's about where we'll end this show. I think we got right about where I wanted to get it. We're about an hour and a half in. I think that's perfect. So let me go ahead and bring our slides back on the screen here. And get ready to wrap this thing up. So, ready for alien integration. Out of all that, even with the nice ones, does it seem like, it's a situation where you would want to integrate with extraterrestrials, even if they have the best intentions like the Palladians? But the adverse effect, could be that there's a group of humanity that will still be alive and past disclosure, which is all these, the powers that be, uh, you know, this is the battle, or, at least they look into some of the things that we'll have to confront or some of the choices that'll have to be made in our future, whether it's in our lifetime or, our descendants' lifetime. At some point, this will have to happen. And hopefully, having these conversations helps out in that. So with that being said, yeah, we're getting up out of here tonight or this afternoon. I keep thinking I'm always doing shows at night, so I always feel like it's night. It's only 2 o'clock here in California. Other shows we have here, we have the Experience with the Phenomenon, we have the Social Dig, we have the Late Night Calling Show, which we haven't done in a while. I'm going to set up a Late Night Calling Show for the week. I'm setting up a schedule because we have Spaced Out Radio on the weekends, and then the stuff I do here at Social Dig is normally during the week. So I'll be doing these shows, the new shows. I'm going to try to do them Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'm going to try to set the times at like 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Then Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're going to try to start getting some pre-recorded content out there, like some UFO minutes, right? Some little short UFO bites that we'll put out there. And we are also working on some other things I can't really talk about behind the scenes, but we should really be elevating the game here pretty soon. It's a one-man show, so let's not forget that. So any and all work that has to be done is done by moi, right? And then with your help as being a member, which that is obviously the other thing to talk about, memberships being available on this channel. You can click link in the description. We'll definitely appreciate that. It goes to helping the show, help produce the show, help make sure we can pay for subscriptions, and just the tools that we need to kind of keep raising the bar. Also on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So what that means is that, we want more people in here having conversations that move the needle, more like-minded individuals that want, that care about what happens to humanity post-disclosure. Right? I think we're building a great community right now. I know other people within your circles that feel the same way that you do. Bring those people in. Let's have these conversations. I would, you know, just as we started the show today, we had a lot of great comments in there. And that's why I love having the group that we have, because, we're getting a lot of great thinkers, a lot of great minds together. And who knows, how much we may help this movement. But with that being said, guys, it has been a pleasure. I'm totally glad you guys came out. We have fun. And we're going to go ahead and get up out of here just like that. Definitely want to thank, I think I heard some super chats come in or something. Let me take a look and see. I know I heard something here. All right, yeah, we got Kitty County Whack. Appreciate your love, support of the channel. And also Deb from Sacramento. Rob, at the Citizens hearing in 2013, they presented actual pictures and schematics of the reverse technology that we have. I've watched the Citizen Disclosure here. A big fan of it. I don't buy all of it though. I don't buy everything, and that's one thing you shouldn't do, is buy everything. If they had the schematics, if the cat was out the bag, either they would scrap the project because the cat's out the bag, or they release it, I would think. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna look at that. I know Salvatore Pius had done patents on UFOs, essentially patented UFO, and he has schematics. So I don't know if we're talking about Salvatore Pius or someone else, but I'll look at it to see who it was. We'll readdress that on an upcoming show. But I do appreciate you coming on in, Deb, and chiming in as you do. Also, we do have a social Discord. The social Discord is up. The link for this is also in the description of every video that we do. Go in there, click the link, join the Discord. You have people from this community that are in there all the time chatting. It's just 24 hours. You can chime in with any of the members that we have here in the audience tonight. And with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and shut this thing down, but not after I give you the phone number for the final time, which is 856-843-3444, or that is 856-THE-DIGG. Outside the United States, obviously dial 001 first and 856-843-3444, or that is 856-THE-DIGG. Pleasure talking to you guys this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Spaced Out Radio, we will be there tonight doing the After Hours radio show, and an important thing is that we now start an hour earlier. So instead of 8 p.m. Pacific, which is 11 p.m. Eastern time in the United States, I've bumped it back an hour. So now we start 7 p.m. Pacific, which is 10 p.m. Eastern time. Hopefully this will, the love will be reciprocated. I'm doing this for the East Coast viewers, and then also East Coast guests, because I've heard in a lot of cases they felt like it was too late, right? So we're going to bump it back an hour. We're going to see how that works. And I will see you guys there tonight. So I'm going to get up out of here for now, and we'll be back doing this on this channel. I think we have a show tomorrow. So outside of that, enjoy the rest of your day. See you guys later. Take care. Welcome to the Social Shop, courtesy of the Social Dig. I am Mr. Rob G, and we are bringing you exclusive gear, and tonight's no different. We have Humanity t-shirts, the positive progression of humanity. Yes, you can go out into the world and proudly show everyone what humanity means to you. $32.99. And remember, if you're a social soldier, you get an additional 20% off the price. That's right. Being a social soldier gets you an additional 20% off. And keep in mind, depending where you are in the world, shipping fees and taxes will be applied. Bringing you exclusive gear right here at the Social Shop on the Social Dig.